John 5 has been really weighty in my thinking lately, where you have all these crippled people or sick or weak or whatever people around the pool of Bethesda, because they're waiting for the angel to come and stir the waters. And because every time the water is stirred, the first person in gets healed of whatever sickness they had. And so you have this, kind of zoom in on this man who had been crippled for 38 years, and he's just waiting for his chance, but it never comes because he doesn't have anyone to put him in the water. And so Jesus comes along and says, "Do you want to become whole?" Like literally, that's a literal rendering of it. Do you want to become whole? And the man has his sort of pat excuse, which is, I have no one to throw me into the water when it's stirred. And Jesus says, "Rise up, take up your mat, and walk." And so, and he does. I believe that as soon as Jesus spoke that word, the man was healed. He was made whole, and his act of faith was getting up and taking up his mat and walking. He could have just laid on his mat, and he would have been whole, but he doesn't experience that. That's not his experience. And so I feel like the encouragement for the believer who's caught in sin is, rise up, take up your mat, and walk. Like you are whole.
Yeah.
You've been made whole by Jesus Christ spiritually, and now you just need to walk and to live from that position. And sometimes, in Galatians 6, he says, if anyone has fallen into sin, those of you who are spiritual should restore such a brother in meekness and love. Right. And so sometimes it's the spiritual brother, the one who is walking according to the Spirit, who has to reach the hand down and take them up and say, all right, you can't get up yourself. Maybe your faith isn't big enough for that, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to pick you up and start leading you.
And that's the key to, because again, like I'm thinking of how many, like, part of the problem of having a sin that you've committed multiple times is it sows unbelief. Okay. And I don't think people realize that the more that you sin, it's not, when we say it's pushing you away from God, it's causing you to doubt his power, what he says. And so you've been almost, if you're addicted to porn or, fornication, and addiction even is a hard term because it seems like it's a habitual practice. You're practicing these things, but there's mixed feelings, right? The more that you do it, the more unbelief you gain from that. And so it's a double-edged sword. The more you abstain from sin, the more faith is possible in. But what you're talking about sounds almost like an immediate miracle, okay? And so, like, what would you say to the guy who's like, what do you mean? I just, like, believe? Like, that just seems really simple, and I feel like I've done that before, and it doesn't work. Again, going back to pragmatism, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like, it's having the faith to like get up and walk.
Yeah.
Like you could just lay on your mat,
right.
And keep waiting for something to happen. But Jesus is saying, rise up, take up your mat, and walk.
So it's a matter of faith.
And
you're so faith to believe what Jesus said. And if you feel like you believe what Jesus said and nothing happens, that's evidence that you actually lack the faith.
Yeah.
Right. There's not and I think you brought up the brother who is spiritual that restores him, probably because you said, hey brother, I sense that if you don't have that the faith, like, grab my hand and we'll do it together. We'll rise up. So your brother, the purpose of the church are people that have been uniquely gifted to edify, and there are different spiritual gifts. And when they use them, you see the glory of God, and that increases your faith, which makes it possible for a miracle to happen. So the freedom from pornography, the miracle is instantaneous, right?
Yes.
So in theory, someone could listen to what you're saying right now and be free, in theory, okay? But if they're not free, it's a problem of doubt and faith. And it seems like this is completely related to the beginning of our conversation. The world is teaching you a different sermon. and you are believing that through the emotions.
Mm.
And that is sowing fear, uncertainty, and doubt in a Jesus that says, take up your mat and walk, right? And the more you give yourself to the world, the more it seems like there's a it's like the seeds of doubt and unbelief are watered and they grow inside of you. And so, like, I guess what's an example of this? It seems like that something like a Christian, oh man, all right, I'm going to say it, whatever. I'm just going to say it. Let's say a Christian watches like a film, okay, and they think it's harmless, but a lot of movies are teaching you like what it means to be happy, right? So in the movie, you got like a wholesome family, and they're very wealthy, and they have a truck from the 1950s, and they have, it's Christmas time, and they're all singing carols together, and you're like, wow, like I envy that happiness. You've just sown unbelief into your heart.
Exactly.
Like, and it's a fine line, because I'm not saying that happens to everyone, but it doesn't have to just be a film. It could be you seeing a billboard of happy people. I don't know, they have like a new cologne or something, or happy people smoking a cigarette, or happy people drinking alcohol, like you mentioned, that sows unbelief. So calling it out for a lie is like doing a spiritual push-up, increasing faith naturally. This is all assuming you're a believer, all assuming that you're born again and have the divine nature. And so it seems like what I'm getting at is there might be some wisdom in abstaining from the narrative that the world gives you. And how do you do that other than just going? I mean, instead of watching a movie with your spouse one night, why don't you have mature believers in your church over for dinner? Well, first, go to a church, right? Go to a gathering, have believers over for dinner, and talk about the Lord. And as that stirs your faith, and you read something, you go back to the words of Jesus. You're healed. Get up. Maybe that increases your faith for that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, the church is absolutely critical in that.
Hey everyone, before you go, I just wanted to tell you about an opportunity that we're doing right now. So we at Heart and Soul provide biblical counseling for those that struggle with sex and pornography addiction, and we're offering a first initial consult free of charge. Now porn is something that wreaks havoc on families, especially on marriages. But even if you aren't married and you're single, the shame that it produces, the crippling lack of motivation that it produces, the despondency, the discouragement, the depression, we want you to experience freedom in Christ. What we do is help you create an action plan, and then we're going to collaborate with you to bring that plan from paper to reality. So please reach out to us. We want to help you. I know it's hard. I know that pornography and sex addictions can produce so much shame. But one of the mistakes that many make is not getting help and not reaching out, not taking that first step. So click the link in the description below, and we hope to see you soon.